I guess the Terrier is a class of locomotive that has so many different livery options that you're really spoilt for choice. Well, big hello to you! It's so great to see you, and I hope I find you well. I'm Jennifer Kirk, welcome you up here to the loft on Weir Yard. Now today we're going to be following on from a video that I did a couple of weeks ago now, where I showed you all of the Gronks in my collection. These are the Class 08 diesel shunters. Now, somebody did ask me, why are they nicknamed Gronks? And that was purely down to the sound they made when they were moving. And much the same way as the Class 66s sometimes get referred to as Ying Yings, then the Gronk, well, the noise they tended to make was like a gronk, gronk, gronk noise. And the nickname stuck. So that, just a little bit of history for you. But today, I'm going to look at another class of locomotives that I've got quite a few in my collection, and you've probably already seen the little gaggle of them there, or should I say a pack, because today we're going to look at all of the Terriers in my collection. So come with me in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts and available to buy through their UK stockists at tramfabrique.co.uk, where you can find the full range available to browse and buy today. Additional support comes from Rails of Sheffield. Sell to the name you know and trust. Buy, sell or exchange any age or any gauge. Call them now for the very best price. Check them out today at the link below. I'm really excited to let the dogs out and cry havoc, let slip the dogs of war, all that kind of stuff. Let's take a look at all my Terriers. One of the things that I do get asked an awful lot about is the locomotives in my collection, and I do have an awful lot because I'm a bit of a hoarder, never tend to get rid of anything. And following on from the success of the Class 08 Gronk Shunter video, I thought I would show to you my complete collection of another class of locomotives that I got quite a few of, and that's the all-new tooled Terriers. Now, there are two manufacturers that make these. This is a Hornby one, but there's also some Rails Daypole tooled versions as well. And I've got both in my collection. But this is by far my favourite livery that the Terrier has ever appeared in, which is the golden ochre, sometimes referred to as improved engine green, and the origins of that name. There's two competing wives' tales. One was simply down to colour blindness, and the other is probably the one which I believe more is down to the fact that it's a little bit of a wry joke that at the time a lot of the different railway companies were painting their express locomotives in various shades of green. So just to be different, Stroudley had these painted in the golden ochre and nicknamed them improved engine green. But I really do like these. The London, Brighton and South Coast Railway built a fleet of these, and probably some of the longest lasting locomotives, lasting right through to BR days. But this particular example, as an A1, is a Hornby model, and it's Brighton is the name. These were all named after, in the main, boroughs of London, but there was also some of the areas around Brighton and places that were in between as well, but mostly boroughs of London. This particular locomotive was one that does still survive to this day, and you can see there on the tank sides we've got this reference to the gold medal winning locomotive of the Paris exhibition in 1878. Now, when this locomotive was new, it was sent over to a Paris exhibition where it won a gold medal for the workmanship, and so the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway quite proud to show this off on the tank sides, and it makes this livery just a little bit different from any of the other early Terriers. I've actually got quite a few in this livery. So the next one up is again a Hornby model, and this is Merton. It was produced as a centenary limited edition by Hornby, and as far as I'm aware, this is an identity which has never before been released as a model, either from this new locomotive models or indeed from the original Daypole tooling later bought and produced by Hornby. The actual prototype was one of the early withdrawals. In fact, some of the first locomotives from this class to be scrapped included Merton. So not really a very famous locomotive at the time, but the claim to fame for this was that the original, I believe the Rovex factory that Hornby can trace its roots back to, was in the Merton area of London, and that's why they chose this for the centenary limited edition. And certainly I was quite pleased to see a more unusual terrier get this particular livery as number 45. So that's the story behind this locomotive, and really pleased to have been able to add that to my fleet. Sticking with the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway improved engine green livery, we've got probably one of the most famous of the Terriers. This is Stepney, and this is the slightly later number of 655. So originally Stepney was number 55. But what the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway would do is, as locomotives age, they like their new ones to have the lower numbers. So they would add an extra number to the front of a locomotive's number to kind of make way for the newer locomotive. So this is Stepney, still in that improved engine green, but with the modified number 655. And this again was an early release from Hornby of the new tooled model. And I actually got this from a Monday clubber, Warbler Productions, who swapped this with me for my old exhibition layout, Grove Street Yard. But it was an example that was glaringly missing from my Terrier collection, so Warbler Productions very kindly offered to swap me this for a layout which, in all honesty, I was wondering what on earth I was going to do with. I no longer exhibited it, and space was becoming a premium, so it was a very happy trade. We're keeping with this livery, and do bear with me, we've got Leadenhall now, and this again a little bit more unusual in terms of identity. Again, not sure that this has ever been released before as a model. Number 48, and again a model from Hornby of the A1 locomotive. And we do have the condenser pipes there, something that Merton and Brighton had, but Stepney didn't. Later on, sometimes these would be removed. There's a lot of detail variances between the different Terriers, and it's something that these newer models are able to take care of, which is really nice to see. So Leadenhall, probably one of the longer names to appear on the tanks of this class of locomotives, is certainly one which I was pretty happy to add to my collection. Now the final golden ochre improved engine green livery is Box Hill, which is not an area of London or indeed Brighton or surroundings. It's actually a geographical feature, so that did make this name a little bit unusual. And this is number 82. This is actually the Rails Daypole model, so we don't get the extra holes in the cab front, as this version was tooled up to have two different cab fronts to take account of that. And we've also got the full detail right down into the bunker on these. It's sound fitted, and I was really impressed by this. It was one of a number of the Terriers that was loaned to the channel for doing the review of the Rails Daypole Terriers, and in fact I was so enamoured by this that I negotiated to buy this model, because even though they were on loan, I just fell in love with this, with the sound file that's on it. It really is great. So I said, look, I just want to buy Box Hill. Give me a price. You're not getting the Loco back. You're just going to get money. So tell me how much money you want for it. And it ended up staying when all the others from that review went back to Rails. And I'm really, really pleased still to have this sound-fitted Loco in my collection. I guess the Terrier is a class of locomotive that has so many different livery options that you're really spoilt for choice. But this is Gypsy Hill. You can see there we've got that original number of 43 has been prefixed with the 6, because this is a later livery. And they did get repainted, lost the names on the tag, and instead we've got this LB and SCR. And this too is one of the Rails Daypole models, and as far as I'm aware so far, this is the only one from either of the new tooled models to have been issued in this much later livery of the Terriers, and certainly very, very different looking. And I bought this as a second-hand item from Rails of Sheffield at a show. And I'll be honest, I thought, you know what, I'm going to grab that. I do like that livery. It matches up with the Brighton Atlantics that I've got, and also the E4 from Bachmann. So I thought, you know, it's something that will look nice in my collection. We're moving now into locomotives that have been sold out of service, and one of the many railway companies that bought Terriers was the London and South Western Railway. Gaining the number 735, this is, we're back to a Hornby locomotive, and I bought this very, very recently, one of the most recent purchases of a Terrier that's in my collection. And the reason for that was that Hornby, from their outlet centre, was selling these off at a really cheap price. And I felt, you know what, I really do like that green. It's really eye-catching. So I just bought one. It didn't feature in any review, but just simply this was a personal want for me. So I wanted it, so I got it. And really pleased with it. It's a very eye-catching livery, and it does match, for example, the M7 locomotive that was issued in this, and the T9 Greyhound as well. So it's just nice to have that colourful pre-grouping livery. Now we turn to another locomotive livery from a different railway company, and again, one which we've seen lots of models get released in the South Eastern and Chatham Railway livery. But of course they bought one particular Terrier, a Terrier which does survive to this day. This is Wadden, and went through numerous different changes of ownership. So following on from the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, became part of the South Eastern and Chatham Railway fleet. Then passed into the Southern Railway fleet, where an awful lot of these sold-off locomotives kind of got reunited under common ownership with that. But Wadden is now out in Canada at the Railroad Museum out there, resplendent in her London, Brighton, South Coast Railway Golden Ochre livery, I believe. But certainly it's nice to have a model of her as number 751 in the SE and CR green, just to match that plethora of models that are currently coming through from this particular railway company from the pre-grouping period. She's a Hornby model, and certainly one which I was quite eager at the time to pick up. I'd picked up the previous tooled version in this livery and was always disappointed that it just looked plasticky. And in fact, they were still on the shelves in a lot of model shops when this model was announced and brought out. So it did kind of leave a number of shops in the lurch, because they had the old stock one and the new stock one, and really that old one, they had to do some deep discounting to get rid of it. So we're going to move on to another railway company, and this is the Kent and East Sussex Railway. And they had a number of these. This particular example, Rolvenden, is another of the Hornby releases. Now, Hornby really did pump out a lot of the different liveries, and indeed still are. And I believe that they've done two different Kent and East Sussex Railway liveried Terriers. This was the first one that was released, and in fact I was very kindly sent this by a Monday clubber who donated it to the channel along with a couple of other locomotives, and I am eternally grateful for their generosity. It features these greedy boards on the back of the tender, a little bit of a detail difference, and these are simply so that the bunker could carry a little bit more extra coal, and certainly it is an eye-catching livery, and from a distance it looks quite dark and flat, but the closer you get, the more you see the subtlety of the lining, which really does look great on this model. We're moving on now. In fact, in this scale, and that's a hint for later on, in this scale, we miss out Southern, although we did review a number of different liveries which aren't here in this collection as part of the initial release video, but they were loaners. I did buy Box Hill, but I also bought this particular locomotive, which is a Rails Daypole release, and we move over to an A1X. So we've got some different details on the front, and you can see we've lost those wings to the smoke box, a number of other detail differences, and this was something that this new tooled Terrier really did do very well. We've also gained later style metal brake blocks. We've got the greedy boards there, and we've got 32661, and I believe that this would have originally been Terrier number 61. Unlike a lot of classes of locomotives that came up from pre-grouping onwards, the original number is still contained within the Terrier's BR number, as they just gained extra digits through different railway company ownership. This particular model with the late crest, they did offer an early crest version as well, has all of the BR lining, and it just showed that these venerable old girls really could still hold their own even into British Rail ownership, and were highly successful. They were the mainstay of a number of branches. They put in a good sterling performance on the Isle of Wight system, but also the Hayling Island branch was one of the last holdouts due to the very low axle loading of the prototypes. So that's my one and only BR liveried one, and for some reason I seem to have neglected the BR era from the different manufacturers. Although the next one is, strictly speaking, another British Rail livery, but we're going back to that golden ochre, and this was a tradition of Brighton Works in BR days, and certainly as well during Southern days, that the Works shunting locomotive would be painted up in the LBSCR livery, and a number of different Terriers took on this role as the years went by. And this particular example carries its BR number in full, 32635, so originally this would have been quite a low numbered Terrier, number 35. Not entirely sure just off the top of my head which one that was, but there were a number of different Terriers over the years that worked in this guise. Sadly, the final one, despite being much photographed towards the end of steam, didn't survive and was actually cut up, and I believe was one of the final Terriers from the last survivors to meet the cutter's torch rather than preservation. But it's an interesting livery, and certainly one which I was quite happy to add into the collection. We got these greedy boards again, but finished in the ochre livery, and you can see those extra holes in the cab front are taken up with the extra plethora of pipework, which actually means that the cab front on these, on the Hornby models, do work much better in the A1X guise. The next two Terriers that I have are in a completely different scale. Now, first up is London and South Western Railway number 734, and this is a Dapol O-gauge model, and I do love O-gauge. There's a much greater heft to these, and I'm actually going to just fiddle out the 001. It's a much brighter colour, but it's quite interesting that Hornby chose to depict 735 whilst Dapol chose to depict 734. So I've actually got both of the London and South Western Railway Terriers in my fleet, just can't really quite run them together. And the final Terrier in my fleet is actually a livery that's missing from my 00 fleet, and that's actually Southern. So 2644 in Southern Monsal Green. It is actually a very beautiful colour. I do like Monsal Green in 00. I've got a lot of locomotives such as N-Class in this livery, but for some reason I never picked up a Southern Railway liveried Terrier. It is something that maybe in the future I will fix. There are other liveries that I don't have examples of, like Great Western Railway, funnily enough, had two of them. They didn't set out to acquire them, they just sort of inherited them from the Western, Cleveland and Portishead Railway. Again, another livery that has been presented ready to run, but I don't have in my collection. I'm also looking forward to some of the Isle of Wight Railway liveries, one of which has been announced by Hornby as a future release in a train pack with matching coaches. The Terriers really did get out there quite far flung, including even to Argentina, where they worked on the La Plata tramway, although it's unclear what livery they might have been in there. A number of others did also find their way into industrial livery, working as contractors' locomotives, including on the building of the Great Central Railway. Even more made it to places like the New Haven Harbour Company, who had one of them to shunt their port, and the military too, in the Montgomeryshire Military Railway, had at least two examples, and there was also the Edge Hill Light Railway, and certainly they're the ones that I know about, and these were really quite well travelled locomotives, and it's testament to their success that they lasted so long, and I'm really pleased to have all of these examples in my collection. Well, I hope you really enjoyed that video, and there's a little bit of an elephant in the room, and I mean this metaphorically. If there really was an elephant up here, I'd be squashed right into the corner going, help, help, who put an elephant up here? But there's two more Terriers which weren't mentioned in that video, and the reason for this is that they're the old tooling. But I know that you guys saw that video where I froze one into a block of ice, and I'm not sure that anybody has ever tried this. I think the most that anybody's tried on YouTube is getting one very cold before they put one on the track. This was going one step further, really hardcore, put them into a block of ice. But that locomotive, as you saw in that video, did survive. But first of all, I'm going to show you Whitechapel. This is the old tooling Terrier, and it's one that was, I think, pretty much the very last that Hornby actually produced from the old tooling. And it, along with a green Terrier and a Kenton East Sussex Railway green livery, were done as exclusive models for the Hornby Collectors Club pretty much in the weeks before Hornby announced that the all-new tooled Terrier was coming through. And I think these were available for about £30 each, which at the time was an incredibly cheap price. Whitechapel is completely unscathed, but Wadden is the one that got frozen into that block of ice. And here she is, So we've got Wadden here. Do need to fix the back-to-backs. I think that's part of the reason that it ran really, really rough, is the wheels have quite literally been just forced out on the axles. But the bow on the running plate does seem to have slowly fixed itself. It's not quite perfect, but just acclimatizing to normal weather is putting the spring back in the plastic and it's going back to its default position. So that's Wadden, and I bought this a long time ago when I first fell in love with Terriers. And it's one of the reasons I know people have asked me about would I sell these on, because they really want the chassis. But they have some sentimental attachment for various reasons, and also they're really great for experimenting on. But I hope you really enjoyed today's video, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below about your own Terrier fleet. I know that there's a number of different liveries that are available in the different scales that the Terrier has been produced, including, I think I mentioned in the video, the New Haven Harbour Company, and that's one that Dapol actually released in N-Gauge, and I'm really hoping that somebody will do one in 00 in time to come. But I'd love to hear from you about your Terrier fleet. And also, don't forget to tickle that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel to be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. You can also head down to our merch store just down below, and it's a great way of showing your love for the channel and getting something great in return, with a t-shirt, a hoodie, or a mug, or maybe even a sticker. And of course my books are available too, and I cannot recommend more highly the Terrier Fest t-shirt and hoodie designs. They look really great and tie in quite well with today's video. You can also head on over to Patreon and help support the channel to keep making the videos that you want to see. And we've got a number of different tiers available, and for as little as $1 a month you can be a part of the club that keeps these videos coming. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself, happy modelling, and keep that dog pack under control. Actually, no, don't. Just buy them manically. Terriers are such a great locomotive. Until next time, take care. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. Additional support comes from Rails of Sheffield. Sell to the name you know and trust. Family-run business purchasing collections for over 50 years. From single items to lifetime collections, no collection is too small or too big. Buy, sell or exchange, any age or any gauge. Rails will take everything: locos, coaches, wagons, track work, controllers, accessories. In fact, they'll take absolutely everything, and certainly will not cherry pick the best items. Rails are only a phone call away. Call them now for the very best price and get instant cash payment or same-day transfer. Check them out today at the link below. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, Alan Dickerson, Eddie Popper, Karen Nichol, Medwin Williams, Crossways Point Junction, 3B Rail, Jennifer Horton, and James Beckett. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.